in which it can exercise sovereignty and certain sovereign rights. So the bill is a general declaration. It's a general declaration of the maritime zones under Philippine jurisdiction, the EEZ and the so-called continental shelf. So by this bill, the Philippines would establish its own domestic legal framework on the promotes maritime laws. And in terms of its standing on various international issues, harmonizing our domestic laws with international law will send a strong signal that the Philippines practices what it preaches by adhering to the rule of international law. I'd like Mr. Senator to show on the screen the maritime zones that we're talking about.
That a miniature maritime zone?
Yeah, hopefully it has to be larger than that. So the 12 miles, 12 miles refers to the territorial sea, which is counted from the outermost points. So you have 12 miles where you have complete sovereignty over those 12 miles territorial sea. The 24-mile contiguous zone is part of your EEZ. I mean, between 12 to 24, it's not your territorial sea, but you have the right.
Can you take it a little slow because it's been a while since I took international law.
That's right.
ASEC. So the 12 miles is the territorial sea.
Yes.
And that's
miles.
complete sovereign rights.
Complete sovereignty.
Okay.
200 miles or EZ, but we use what the world likes to use, EZ. So economic zone. Okay, over this. Set. Okay. So you have the 12 miles here, the 24, and so forth. Over this, you have the right to exploit the marine area, some territory to the outer edge, because the theory goes some territory to the outer edge, because the territory, there's a part where the end or the margin of the continent goes straight down. So actually, the continental shelf may not be exactly the same as the exclusive economic zone in terms of distance, but under the law, there's the juridical, if your continent, 115, beyond the 200 miles, beyond the not anymore the waters, but the seabed and subsoil. So, why are we doing this? Well, precisely.
Just a question.
Yes.
On the map, it appears that because maybe of the scale, the EEZ and the continental shelf are exactly the same.
Yes.
But they're not, no?
There's a juridical.
Because the points from which they're counted is different, when did we accede to the when
we signed it in 82.
The bill will take the seal. When did we accede to?
Because there was a required number of ratifications. And the UNCLOS took place, sorry, not took place, took effect in 1994.
Got the crucial ratification 94.
Yes, and we were already in them.
So I'm just wondering why it took us so long to kind of come up with this this legislation. So I'm just wondering why it took us so long to kind of come up with this.
One good news: if you see the Benham rice, that's on the right.
Any of the claims there. Okay. So can we hear from the DOJ? State Ganchun. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the DOJ, we support the passage of the Maritime Zones Bill. We also find nothing legally objectionable to those bills. In our position paper submitted before, we state that we find the provisions of the bills to be in accordance with the UNCLOS, specifically on the breadth of the different maritime zones provided therein, and the nature of the rights of the Philippines over those different maritime zones. We also find that the treatment of the proposed bills of the waters inside the archipelagic baselines as archipelagic waters.
Previously submitted paper regarding the bills on the maritime zones, and that the department had actively participated in all interagency meetings for the formulation of that we had submitted offer regarding the bills, and that the department had participated in all interagency meetings for the formulation of national reiterate provisions of the United Law of the Sea. The Department fully supports the proposed legislation in view of the state's recently declared policy of the rule of law in pursuing maritime claims and resolving maritime disputes. It is also respectfully and the armed forces.
As far as the Philippine Navy is concerned, the Philippine Navy reiterates our full support to the speedy legislation of the Senate bills. In this case, on the Philippine Maritime Zones, there have been a lot of discussions among the members of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and we share the same position as what was stated earlier by Yusek Batino, Your Honor.
Chairman, Your Honor, the Maritime Zone that is consistent with the provisions of UN Convention on the Sea, related by Yusek Batino.
Maybe we have ASEC Anselmo Abungan.
Thank you. The DPR supports the passage of this bill defining the maritime zones, and for our comments, we pass it on to our NAMRIA and attached agency of the DEALR.
Who is going to speak for? Yeah, Mr. Karandang. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before we have the following comments. After Section 2. So it should be Section 3 now to read archipelagic. Archipelagic baselines as used in this Act shall refer to the baselines defined under Republic Act number 9522 entitled Amend Search defined under Republic Act number 9522 entitled An Act to Amend Maritime under the different sections. And finally, under the sections on the and exclusive economic zone, again, to be consistent with the other sections, we propose to replace the phrase low water line, as the case may be, by the phrase from which the breadth of the territorial sea is measured. Thank you, Your Honor.
The
baselines or from the low water line, as the case may be. But the water line is being referred here is
SB 39 and SB Senate expressly mentioned rights over the living and to explore and exploit living and non-living, both organic and non-organic resources in the EEZ. However, the right to explore and mention rights in the EEZ.
So you Article
Section
50.
I'm sorry, I don't have my. Okay. No, it's 50. I'm sorry, it's not 50, but it's the 50 is about internal waters. Sorry. Of energy from the water, currents and winds. It's provided for it's mention of the exploration, and winds, and exploitation.
Probably, I suspect it's because they just quoted the first right mentioned in Section 56, and then they said includes this and other rights. It's quite a lengthy provision, so siguro palagi ko yun na lang ang ginawa rather than quote the entire provision.
Yeah.
But anyway, sige, we'll look into that suggestion.
Okay. Internal water clearly delimited, delineated in order to have a protected area from passage and archipelagic.
You're not happy.
So you don't have a map, but so if this is the Philippines and there are the whole
there's
water.
a map behind you if you want to. Yeah.
Territorial innocent passage cannot be exercised in this innocent water. Did I explain myself clearly?
Again.
Did I explain myself clearly?
Again.
Actually, this is a new concept for me also.
There's a right of innocent passage for other vessels.
Correct.
Which we will, diba? So that's why we have the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Bill up after the Maritime
Yes,
Zones
but aside from the
Bill.
Archipelagic Sea Lanes Bill, an exercise of innocent passage, which they can exercise all over the archipelago. So this means that it doesn't. what I mean to say is that the whole thing here, the gray area is, although we call it
Archipelagic waters.
archipelagic waters,
Yeah.
but under the law of the sea, in the right, using the right, that's over and above the archipelagic sea lanes passage. The archipelagic state the right to establish internal waters here within among its bases in the among its internal waters here within
Whatever that body of water is, Palawan. Yeah, Sulu Sea, in the Sulu Sea.
because the way it is now with the innocent passage doctrine, they can basically Treaty of Paris should not be considered as a foregone issue. I just want to make that comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
International law and existing customary practices. There are other customary practices that are not really codified under existing international law, but are deemed to be essential and provides existing international law, but are deemed to be essential and provides. Is our maritime zone? There's no clarity on the maritime zones outside our 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone. Under international law, is our maritime zone. There's no clarity on the maritime zones outside our 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone. Under international law, zones have not been fully clarified under two existing bills. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Salamat, Professor. Can we ask...
issue about the internal waters. Actually, we understand NAMRIA is meeting with interagency, and NAMRIA could confirm this, to designate the internal waters in Archipelagic. They don't go for MOA to describe what NAMRIA is doing now.
I asked the same question, Your Honor, and I was told that there's an understanding in the Executive Department that NAMRIA will map where these internal waters are inside the archipelagic waters. Kasi under the UNCLOS po, merong specific technical definition kung ano ang magka-qualify as internal waters. Thank you.
The position of UP is that we should have it in this law, or in a different law at least. But it should be made explicit. That's your position.
Yes, yes, at least we have some protected areas.
But this bill can proceed independently. You're saying Congress should also make explicit what are internal waters.
Yes,
Tama ba yung pagkaintindi natin?
correct, because that will take too much time.
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
Go
sir.
ahead.
And then the second issue, raised by my esteemed Professor Vanlawi, one of the best, National
Okay.
Defense College. All right, sir. Actually, it's also in 95222. We define, which is allowed under the UNCLOS, the Carayan Island Group as a regime of islands, not being part of the archipelago of the Philippines, because the UNCLOS has certain rules as to the distance and so forth, and they don't apply. We have to clarify, the Marcos PD of 1596 was passed in 78 before the UNCLOS. And our understanding is because there was a 200-mile exclusive economic zone, but because of occupation, discovery, and so
Other
forth.
bases under international law. Yeah.
Other bases under international, so it's just a matter of asserting our ownership and steady start to have the law on the maritime zones. But we support the idea that we have to defend our group, no? our islands, and I think the entire Philippines knows that the Executive Department and the President are doing all they can to assert our rights over it. But
You also agree that there's a need.
as the lead agency can suggestions, internal water definitions. The other thing, eventually we'll have to do that.
Did the NAMRIA want to say something?
Shall internal water cited by the law of the sea. Number one is if the river flows directly to the sea, then you can.
Anyone care to comment? Dean Magallona and Professor Lotilla, who are my professors, pero hindi tayo siniputan siguro. Hindi sila bilib sa estudyante nila. But can we hear from Lieutenant Commander Victoria Vergara, who's the Commanding General of the Philippines?
82 UNCLOS. So,
Thank you. Any other comments before we leave? Yeah, Yusek Batino.
Your Honor, please, we just want to issue our comments on the comments issued earlier by
Yes, go
NAMRIA.
ahead, please.
Proposed insertion of Section on archipelagic basin 6, sir. This is
It's always
that's not
from...
found in yung clause.
Thank you, Mr. Senator.
Maritime zone. No, it's just
Coastal lanes or ASL, wherein such right of passage could be exercised. In order for the archipelagic state to rationalize such passage in accordance with its national and domestic considerations. Your Honor, if the Philippines does not exercise this right and does not itself designate archipelagic sea lanes be used for navigating economic, given that community adheres to establish or push for free actual archipelagic sea lanes, because we'd like him to be the one to establish them, because if the bill
Passage of the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Bill, we also find that their provisions are in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, specifically with respect to the rights and obligations of foreign ships and aircraft when exercising the right of archipelagic sea lanes passage. With respect to the actual designation of sea lanes, we Article 53, Parsation, pursuant to the UNCLOS. Or as another, we suggest like
Congress sets the boundaries, but then can amend it later on. Would that be constitutional? A valid delegation
I don't
of power.
think,
that you
Mr.
set,
Chair,
then you
executive
say it will be,
issuance
yeah, exactly, because
cannot
in effect your
change.
executive is
the House of prior to the one found in the House of B may be time domain. Enhancing governance, watch count following the members of Defense, Secretary of Justice, and DNR. The LG, Philippine Coast Guard, and Philippine Navy, and the Armed Philippines, Your Honor. Coast Guard and Philippine Navy, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Archipelagic sea by submarines. We understand, Your Honor, that the general understanding is that the archipelagic stand, Your Honor, general understanding is that the archipelagic understanding, Your Honor, we have expressed our concern as the in charge with protect the territory and the country, that this would lend to some difficulties in the movement of these sub.
Sir, on that, UNCLOS itself does not define what is the normal mode, although it's not confirmed on what constitutes operations of a submarine is under.
yeah. What depth is that? Yung submerged up to anong depths? Yeah.
Operations of a submarine is underwater.
Yeah.
So,
What depth is that? Yung magbabago rin naman yung behavior ng mga agencies, di ba? I suppose there'll be an increased presence in is that Yusek, are you done with your comments? Yeah, sure. We'll recognize
Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, the government's efforts bill of domestic law. It is also worthy to mention that the establishment of limitations on navigation and transit within the country's territory and its surrounding waters and air has always been a priority concern for the Defense Department and the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Notwithstanding any deficiency in our capability for maritime domain awareness and interdiction, the defense and military establishments firmly believe that each shall be an aircraft to determine their own use for international navigation. The Armed Forces, the Philippine Coast Guard, the Philippine Maritime Police, and affected local government units will be able to maximize their
with the constitutional mandate of freedom from nuclear weapons in Philippine territory. Just something on maybe paragraph C on weapons. And then the second point, to mobilize this National Coast Watch system created by EO 57, series of 2011, which was already mentioned a while ago. And the third is to authorize the press,
let the body know that there's a position paper by the Tubataha Management Office that objects to the bill, the Senate Bill 159. I think they've also registered objection in the past Congress because it would pass through Tubataha and other protected areas. But I'd like to ask the body, hindi ba kahit hindi natin pinasa tong panukala, pwede pa rin dumaan naman yung mga vessels? Yeah, I see vessels.
To the concern should refer coordinate President 2 and adopted internationally binding. It may therefore be more practical of the Philippines to designate such archipelagic. Also like to propose the call for the designation of an implementing agency. Board, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, if you will allow us, from the Biodiversity Management Bureau, stating that they interpose, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, if you will allow us, from the Biodiversity Management Bureau, stating that they and should not be limited only to oil or other noxious substances, but also living organisms detrimental to the environment, such as alien invasive species.
Yeah, while we support the passage of SB 15, it makes us a good steward of our national and archipelagic state. We have an observation on section 4, letter D of the proposed bill. It says that foreign military aircraft and warship, while exercising the rights of archipelagic sea lanes passage, must refrain from any war game exercises or exercises using as a scholar activities, which is defined as proposal activities. Our proposal for military activities, sorry, nawala. Mahaba kasi itong proposal namin. Military activities used for military purposes, such as intelligence gathering of weapons whatsoever and using ammunition.
Could you explain the amendment or the proposed amendment?
The main purpose of that amendment is to prevent.
Could you explain the amendment or the proposed amendment?
The main purpose, they have these high ships and vessels that could just say that we are through your archipelagic. Say that we are innocent.
We appreciate the specificity that Professor Banlawi proposes, the bill, the provision to be phrased. It is my personal view that the wordings as presently provided under the bill still includes the acts that
If our safeguard and the Philippine Navy, it is we should tell if it is really for security or not, the establishments of the sea lanes passage, since they're the one who are actually on the sea. Leading to our safeguard and the Philippine Navy, it is to ensure the security. It is actually them who can tell if it is really for security or not, the establishments of the sea lanes passage. Sea passage and sea lanes passage can still be exercised. However, under the convention, if you have an internal water, this cannot be subjected to passage, sea lanes, innocent passage, and sea lanes still be exercised. However, under the convention, if you have an internal water, this is subjected to. Because, as mentioned by the DFA, the orange ones are the most frequently used. So, the blue ones, are those also orange, sir? Because, as mentioned by the DFA, the orange ones are the most frequently used. So, the blue ones, are those also orange, sir? The blue ones? So, it's also forces. War is not really a common practice now. But there is such a provision in the San Remo Manual which says that the San Remo Manual, yes, San Remo Manual, I'm sorry, on international law,
yes,
applicable to armed conflicts at sea.
Okay.
Although this is just a compilation of laws by international exercise of surveying territorial seas, the accompanying obligation of the neutral states duty to undertake measures to prevent ensure and make the surveillance to ensure that there's no acts of hostility by a belligerent state once it has been exercised in the Sea Lanes Passage. Because if not, in case belligerent forces exercise hostile acts, if not, in case belligerent forces.
Yeah.
Your Honor,
Well, first of all, are you aware of this? First time to hear this.
We have an idea of the principles mentioned by Attorney. Just a thought, Your Honor, that in the absence of this bill, all these issues would still be a problem anyway. So we still be bill will not.
It's a good point. Wrap up some loose ends, I think.
Will raise.
Regarding the Tubataha Reefs and National Park, the government has started preparing for the designation of the Tubataha National Park as a particularly sensitive sea area, PSSA, under IMO. And we are, in fact, we have an event in IMO at the sidelines of the Maritime Environment Protection Committee meeting in May to already present this idea before the area, PSSA, under IMO. And we are, in fact, we have an event in IMO at the sidelines of the Maritime Environment who filed the nomination next led by our Philippine Coast. The PSSA entails some prescribed measures when foreign ships commercial pass through that area. So these are very technical measures, like for example, you cannot drop anchor, etc. But we think that this designation, we hope to be the first PSSA in Asia because there are 14 designated TRNP, Tubataha Reefs and National Park, to make this possible.
What's PRNP? Sorry.
TRNP, Tubataha Reefs and Asia yet, and consolidating national positions on this. We are designating consultant, and we hope to submit the formal nomination for the PSSA designation by we are designating a national consultant, and we hope to submit the formal nomination for the PSSA designation March 2016.
Archipelagic Sea Lane Passage vis-a-vis Innocent Passage, Mr.
And
Chair.
other, you mentioned other, maybe those are associated
Yes.
rights already.
Yes. Because under the convention, since we're an archipelagic state, the waters within the archipelago is considered archipelagic waters, but the treatment on internal waters law.
Okay. So we'd appreciate if you could get back to us.
Or to have
87 constitutions. The UNCLOS does not exist, although it says that each state can draw the closing lines for the delimitation of internal waters in accordance with the provisions of the UNCLOS on river.
To sort of to move in that direction.
For the moment, not yet, because we have a passage bill and so forth. But of course, there's always an interagency process, and
We just put it on the table, make people aware that foundation with
Pelagic sea lanes, we are already taking into account MPAs and also other possible areas that may affect security and the environment. And
okay. Oh, no more. Any other comments? Okay. For coming from the different departments. Salamat ho. We'll just okay. Thank you very much. From the different departments. Salamat ho. We'll just a few details.